I grew up in coastal North Carolina, in a quiet town near the Outer Banks, where nearly every family either owned a fishing boat, rented out a beach house, or worked some kind of summer job tied to tourism. For most people, summer meant crowds, bonfires, and late nights by the water. For me, it used to mean freedom. That changed the summer I turned 17. It happened in July of 2022, during one of those humid weekends where the air feels heavy even after sunset. My best friend Ethan Mercer had invited me and our other friend Caleb Ross to spend 3 nights at his family's beach house in a private inlet community called Driftwood Point. Ethan's family was loaded. Their beach house wasn't one of those tiny rental cottages packed shoulder to shoulder with others. It sat at the very edge of a narrow saltwater canal, with a private dock stretching into the dark water and enough distance from neighboring houses to feel isolated at night. His parents were out of state for some corporate retreat, leaving us alone for the weekend. To 3 teenage boys, that was basically paradise. Caleb had just gotten his license and drove us down in his battered silver Jeep. The entire ride was chaos. He nearly clipped a mailbox pulling out of my driveway, missed 2 turns, and spent most of the trip yelling at his GPS while Ethan and I laughed ourselves stupid. By the time we arrived, the sky was streaked orange and pink, and the neighborhood had that calm evening stillness that only waterfront communities seem to have. The house itself was huge. The front entrance opened into a wide living room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the canal. Upstairs, a wraparound balcony connected the bedrooms, and a spiral staircase led down to the backyard patio and pool. Beyond the pool was the dock, where Ethan's dad kept that prized possession, a sleek white speedboat named the Mariner. The whole place looked like something out of a vacation commercial. Naturally, our first priority wasn't appreciating the architecture. It was figuring out which girls were nearby. After an hour of aggressively messaging every contact we had, Ethan finally got responses from 3 girls staying in the area: Lena, Brooke, and Maya. They agreed to come over around 9. We spent the next couple hours setting up speakers outside, sneaking beers from Ethan's dad's liquor cabinet, and acting way cooler than we actually were. When the girls arrived, things clicked almost immediately. They were funny, easygoing, and just reckless enough to match our energy. We swam, drank, blasted music, and by midnight, all 6 of us were crowded into the heated pool behind the house, passing around a joint while the water steamed softly into the cool night air. It was one of those moments you're certain you'll remember forever. The moon reflected off the canal like shattered glass. Music drifted from the outdoor speakers. Everyone was laughing. Then Ethan went silent. At first, I thought he was just too high. But when I turned toward him, I saw his face had gone pale. He was staring past me, toward the opposite side of the canal. "What?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached over and turned the music down until it clicked completely off. The sudden silence was unsettling. "What is it?" Brooke asked. Ethan pointed. "There's someone on the dock across from us." I turned to look. At first, I saw nothing but darkness. The canal was narrow, maybe 40 feet across, lined with docks and expensive vacation homes. Most were dark and empty this time of year, unless rented out. Then I saw it, a figure, standing motionless at the very end of the dock, directly opposite us. Tall, still, watching. "Probably someone staying there," Caleb muttered. Ethan shook his head. "No. That house belongs to the Halstons. They're in Colorado until August." That got everyone's attention. The girls exchanged uneasy glances. Then Lena whispered, "There's more than one." And she was right. As my eyes adjusted, I made out 3 more figures emerging from the darkness behind the first. 4 total, all standing at the edge of the dock, facing us. No movement, no sound, just standing there. Something about it felt wrong. It wasn't like curious neighbors checking out loud teenagers. They stood too still, like they'd been waiting. The tension hit all of us at once. "Inside," Ethan said quietly. No one argued. We climbed out of the pool fast, water dripping everywhere as we grabbed towels and hurried toward the sliding glass door. Halfway there, Caleb froze. "Oh my God." I turned just as headlights from a passing car briefly illuminated the canal. For a split second, the opposite dock became visible. The figures were wearing dark clothing from head to toe, and the moment the light hit them, they moved. 4 splashes exploded across the water. They had jumped in, swimming towards us. Panic erupted instantly. The girls screamed. Caleb lunged for the sliding glass door and yanked it open while Ethan shouted for everyone to move. We scrambled inside, slipping on wet tile as Caleb slammed the glass shut and locked it. Ethan bolted for the front door. I followed, helping him throw the deadbolt. The entire house suddenly felt too exposed, too many windows, too many entrances. We gathered in the upstairs guest room, the only room with no windows facing the canal. Nobody spoke. We just listened. Dripping water from our swimsuits pattered on the hardwood floor. Then, soft footsteps. Above us, the upstairs balcony. My blood turned to ice. Caleb's face went ghost white. I forgot the balcony door. No one moved. The footsteps crossed slowly overhead, measured, deliberate, like whoever was out there knew exactly where we were. Then came the sound of the balcony door sliding open. Brooke started crying. Ethan grabbed his phone and dialed 911 with shaking hands. Before the operator even answered, another sound echoed through the house. Heavy footsteps on the stairs. They were inside. That was enough. "Move!" Ethan yelled. We bolted. All 6 of us sprinted downstairs, through the front hall and out into the driveway. Caleb nearly dropped the car keys fumbling for them. Behind us, I heard the front door creak open. I looked back. A dark figure stood in the doorway, watching. Caleb finally got the Jeep started. He threw it into reverse, floored it, and immediately smashed through Ethan's mailbox before fishtailing into the street. No one cared. We sped through Driftwood Point while Ethan shouted our address to the 911 operator. Only when we reached the main highway did anyone breathe. Police arrived within 15 minutes. We followed them back, and what they found inside changed everything. The upstairs bedrooms had been completely ransacked. Jewelry, electronics, cash, gone. But the worst part wasn't inside. When officers checked the dock, the Mariner was missing. Ethan's family boat had vanished into the darkness. And tucked inside the empty dock cleat was something that made my stomach drop. A soaked scrap of paper with 3 handwritten words. "We'll be back." For a long moment, none of us said anything. The police officer held the dripping piece of paper under his flashlight, reading the words aloud in a low voice that somehow made them feel even colder. "We'll be back." Ethan looked like he might throw up. His face had gone completely pale, and I could see his hands trembling as he stared at the empty dock where his family's boat had been tied only hours earlier. One of the officers immediately started treating the entire property as a crime scene. They photographed everything: the broken balcony latch, the wet footprints smeared across the hardwood floors, the muddy streaks running from the upstairs hallway down toward the back patio. But what disturbed everyone most was how organized it all looked. This wasn't random vandalism. Whoever had broken into that house knew exactly where to go. The valuables taken weren't just whatever happened to be lying around. They'd gone straight for specific things. Ethan's dad's watch collection from the master bedroom safe, his mother's jewelry box hidden inside a false cabinet drawer, cash kept in a locked office downstairs, and, of course, the Mariner. It was as if they had studied the house beforehand. The note only made that feeling worse. The officers questioned us separately for nearly an hour. Every detail mattered. What time we first noticed the figures, what they looked like, how fast they moved, whether we recognized their height, body shape, or voices. But the truth was, none of us could give much. They had stayed silent the entire time. No shouting, no threats, just movement. Purposeful, coordinated movement. That somehow made it creepier. If they'd yelled or chased us outright, maybe it would have felt like panicked burglars. Instead, it felt calculated, like they'd expected us there. By the time Ethan's parents were contacted, it was nearly 4 a.m. They drove back from Raleigh immediately. I'll never forget the look on Ethan's father's face when he arrived. At first, he was furious, not about the drinking or the girls being there, but because he thought our carelessness had caused everything. That changed the second he saw the note. His anger disappeared instantly. Something in his expression shifted. He stared at those 3 words far too long, and for just a second, I saw genuine fear. That detail stayed with me, because Ethan's dad wasn't the kind of man who got scared. The official investigation dragged on for months. Nothing came of it. No fingerprints, no usable security footage. The neighborhood cameras had all gone offline for roughly 40 minutes that night due to what police described as network interference. The boat was never found. Eventually, life moved on. Caleb left for college in Tennessee. I stayed local. Ethan went north to study business in Virginia. The 3 of us slowly drifted apart the way high school friends often do. For almost 3 years, we barely spoke. And if that had been the end of it, maybe this would just have become one of those unsettling teenage memories people tell at parties. But it wasn't the end. Not even close. It was last fall when everything resurfaced. Our high school held a 10-year reunion. I hadn't planned on going. Honestly, I hate those things. But my girlfriend convinced me it might be fun, so I went. The event was held at this renovated waterfront restaurant downtown. Loud music, overpriced drinks, awkward small talk, the usual. About 20 minutes after arriving, I spotted Ethan near the bar. Older, obviously, sharper, more serious, but unmistakably him. We ended up talking for nearly an hour, couching up on everything we'd missed. Eventually, Caleb joined us too. For a little while, it felt like no time had passed. Later that night, after most people had started heading out, Ethan suggested grabbing drinks somewhere quieter. We ended up at this tiny harbor bar called the Rusted Anchor, sitting in a back booth nursing cheap whiskey and swapping old stories. That's when Caleb casually brought up the beach house incident. The effect on Ethan was immediate. He set his glass down hard enough to spill some. Then he looked at both of us and said, "There's something I never told you." That got our attention. He leaned in. "My brother saw it." "Saw what?" I asked. "The boat." I thought he meant shortly after it was stolen. He shook his head. "No, last summer." The silence that followed felt heavy. Ethan explained. His younger brother, Logan, had taken their replacement boat out one night with 2 friends, without permission. They'd anchored near a restricted marsh island about 15 miles south of Driftwood Point. Apparently, kids sometimes snuck out there to drink because it was isolated and patrol boats rarely checked it at dark. Around sunset, one of Logan's friends noticed another boat anchored further down the shoreline. At first, they thought nothing of it, until Logan got a better look. According to Ethan, he recognized it instantly. Same hull shape, same custom railings, and faintly visible beneath fresh paint on the stern, the outline where the Mariner's original lettering had once been. It was Ethan's family's stolen boat, or at least Logan was certain it was. Naturally, his friends wanted proof, but none of them had brought their phones ashore, so they swam back to retrieve them from their own boat. That's when things got bad. As they walked along the beach, one of Logan's friends noticed someone standing near the tree line, watching them. Then the figure stepped forward. A man, tall, broad-shouldered, holding a shovel. At first, he walked. Then, when the boys turned to run, he sprinted, chasing them. Logan and his friends barely made it back to their boat, and because of nighttime speed restrictions in that waterway, they couldn't just gun it out of there. They had to idle through the dark while listening to what Logan swore was another engine somewhere behind them, following. He didn't tell his parents until the next morning. They reported everything. Authorities searched the island, found nothing. No boat, no man, no evidence. The case went nowhere. Again. When Ethan finished, none of us spoke for a long time. Finally, I asked the obvious question. "Do you think it was the same people?" He stared into his drink, then nodded slowly. "There's more." That's when he told us about his father. Apparently, after the original theft, Ethan's father admitted something he'd hidden for years.
Before moving to Driftwood Point, he'd been involved in a legal dispute with former business partners over a failed marina development. The case got ugly. Lawsuits, threats, accusations of stolen money. One of those former partners disappeared not long after, never officially connected to anything, but rumors spread. The theory Ethan's father had kept to himself all these years was chilling. He believed the people who robbed the house weren't random thieves. They were sending a message, and they'd chosen their family because of something buried in that old dispute. Maybe revenge, maybe intimidation, maybe something else. As we left the bar that night, Ethan said something I still think about. He told us his family sold the beach house 6 months ago. Not because of finances, not because they'd outgrown it, because 2 weeks before putting it on the market, his father found another note tucked into the dock cleat. This one only had 4 words. Should have stayed quiet. No fingerprints, no cameras caught anything. Nothing. I haven't slept right since hearing that. Because if whoever took that boat is still out there after all these years, then this was never just a robbery. And whatever happened on that island last summer means they're still watching.
My first night as a mobile patrol officer was supposed to be simple. That's what my field trainer kept telling me. "Relax, Ethan," he said as we pulled out of the regional security office just after 11 p.m. Most of this job is driving around, checking doors, writing reports, and trying not to fall asleep. At the time, I believed him. I was 23, fresh out of training, and still trying to convince myself I'd made the right career choice. Security work wasn't exactly my dream. It was just stable. Decent pay, decent hours, and better than the warehouse job I'd quit 2 months earlier after nearly losing 2 fingers to a malfunctioning loading dock. So when Sentinel Protective Services hired me for mobile patrol in the Western Toronto district, I took it without hesitation. The position sounded straightforward enough. Drive company vehicle, respond to alarms, conduct perimeter inspections, document anything suspicious. Nothing glamorous, nothing dangerous. At least that's what the recruiter said. My field trainer for the week was a guy named Marcus. He was 26, only a few years older than me, but carried himself like he'd spent 20 years in the field. Confident, relaxed, always chewing mint gum. The kind of guy who somehow made every situation seem manageable. That first shift had been uneventful. We'd already checked half a dozen sites across Mississauga, a logistics warehouse, a small accounting firm, 2 empty office parks, a private school. Every stop followed the same pattern. Park, check exterior doors, log status, move on. By 1:10 a.m., I was starting to settle into the rhythm of it. Then dispatch radioed in. Unit M12, proceed to Briarwood Medical Center for scheduled perimeter check. Marcus acknowledged the call and glanced at me. Perfect training site. I nodded, trying to sound more confident than I felt. The Briarwood Clinic sat on the edge of an industrial district near Winston Churchill Boulevard. The area was mostly dark warehouses, scattered office buildings, and long stretches of empty road. Even during the day, it felt isolated. At night, it felt abandoned. As we turned into the property, my stomach tightened. Something immediately looked wrong. The underground parking gate was open, wide open. Marcus noticed it too. "That's strange," he muttered. The gate was supposed to remain closed and locked after 9 p.m. Only staff keycards could open it. Then our headlights swept across the front entrance. The glass double doors were partially open. One panel hung crookedly from its hinge. The frame looked splintered, like someone had forced their way inside. Marcus slowed the vehicle to a stop. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, he killed the engine. "Alarm should have triggered," he said quietly. My pulse quickened. I was still new enough that my first thought was simple confusion. If the doors were breached, why hadn't dispatch notified us? Marcus graphed the radio. "Dispatch, this is M12. We've arrived at Briarwood. Possible forced entry. No active alarm showing. Investigating." The dispatcher acknowledged. Marcus looked at me. "Stay with me." Then he reached under his seat and pulled out his expandable baton.
That was the moment everything became real. Until then, security work had felt theoretical, training scenarios, policy manuals, hypothetical risks. Seeing Marcus arm himself made my chest tighten. This wasn't training anymore. We stepped out into the cold night. The clinic loomed ahead, dark and silent. 4 stories of black reflective glass and pale concrete. The only illumination came from our flashlights and the weak amber glow of parking lot lamps. As we approached the entrance, I could hear my own breathing, fast, uneven. The damaged door creaked slightly in the wind. Marcus pushed it open fully. The lobby beyond was dark, too dark. Emergency exit signs cast faint red pools of light across the polished floor. "Power's on," Marcus whispered. "Main lights should have activated." We stepped inside. The air felt strangely cold. Not normal indoor cold, the kind of cold that seeps into your skin. Then came the sound. A soft mechanical hum. We both looked up. The elevator panel above the lobby was lit, and the numbers were moving. The elevator was ascending, by itself. I stared. Marcus cursed under his breath. Someone's here. The doors opened briefly on the 4th floor, then closed. The indicator stayed there. Neither of us moved. Finally, Marcus turned to me. "If there's an intruder, they're cornered upstairs." His voice sounded calm, but I could hear tension underneath. He hit the elevator call button. The ride up was agonizing. Every passing floor made my pulse hammer harder. I kept imagining the doors opening to reveal someone standing there, weapon raised, face hidden, the kind of nightmare scenario every training video warned about. When the elevator reached 4, the doors slid open. Nothing. The hallway beyond was empty, pitch black except for emergency lights. Marcus stepped out first. I followed. He swept his flashlight slowly across the corridor. Rows of clinic offices lined both sides, consultation rooms, storage closets, administrative spaces. All dark, all silent. We searched methodically, room by room, door by door. Nothing. No signs of forced entry upstairs, no movement, no sound, just that oppressive stillness. Then, as we reached the far end of the hall, we heard it. Footsteps. From the stairwell. Below us. Heavy. Descending. Marcus froze. The footsteps stopped. The silence that followed felt crushing. He slowly raised his radio. "Dispatch M12 requesting immediate backup." The response came quickly. "State emergency." Marcus swallowed. "There is an unknown subject inside the building. Possible ambush situation. Subject currently on lower floor near stairwell access." I stared at him. The seriousness in his expression terrified me more than the situation itself. Dispatch instructed us to hold position and await backup. Marcus lowered the radio and looked at me. For the first time all night, he looked genuinely scared. "Stay with me," he said. I nodded. We positioned ourselves beside the stairwell door. Neither of us spoke. We could hear faint movement below, shifting, scraping, like someone adjusting their stance, waiting. That's what made it so much worse. Whoever was down there wasn't trying to flee. They were waiting for us to come down. Marcus leaned close. "He knows we're here." The words sent a chill through me. 15 minutes passed, maybe 20. Time stretched strangely in that hallway. Every second felt endless. Then from below, we heard the stairwell door creak open, followed by slow footsteps climbing upward, one step at a time, coming towards us. Marcus tightened his grip on the baton. I could hear my own heartbeat. The footsteps got closer, closer, and then stopped directly outside the door. There was absolute silence, and then the handle began to turn. The voice over the radio crackled so suddenly that both Noah and Eric nearly jumped. "Unit 12, status check." It was dispatch. Eric grabbed the radio so fast he almost dropped it. His hand was trembling. "Unit 12 responding," he said, his voice tight. "We have an active intruder inside Black Ridge Medical, 4th floor stairwell access.
Suspect is moving through the building, requesting immediate backup. Static hissed through the speaker. Then dispatch responded. Copy that. Supervisor is en route. ETA 12 minutes. Hold position and do not engage. 12 minutes. To Noah, it sounded like a lifetime. The stairwell had gone completely silent again. No more footsteps. No movement. No breathing. Just that heavy, suffocating quiet that made every second feel stretched. Eric slowly lowered the radio and looked at Noah. We stay here. Noah nodded, though every instinct in his body was screaming at him to run. The two of them backed deeper into the fourth-floor hallway. It was narrow and lined with darkened examination rooms, their frosted glass windows reflecting pale strips of emergency light from the ceiling. Noah could hear his own pulse thudding in his ears. Minutes passed. Then came the sound. A metallic clunk. It echoed up from below. The stairwell door on the third floor. Someone had opened it. Eric's eyes widened. He's moving. Then another sound. Slow footsteps. Coming up. Deliberate. Measured. Whoever was down there wasn't rushing anymore. He was climbing toward them calmly, as if he knew they had nowhere to go. Eric motioned for Noah to follow him. They slipped into the nearest exam room and quietly shut the door behind them. The darkness inside was almost total. Noah could barely make out the outline of the exam table and cabinets. The footsteps grew louder, closer. Step, step, step. The sound stopped right outside the room. Noah held his breath. For several agonizing seconds, nothing happened. Then the doorknob slowly began to turn. Eric reacted instantly. He shoved his full weight against the door. The knob jerked violently. Whoever was outside started forcing it open. The wood groaned under the pressure. "Help me," he hissed. Noah threw himself against the door beside him. The force on the other side was terrifyingly strong. The door rattled in its frame as the intruder pushed harder. Then, suddenly, the pressure stopped. Noah and Eric stumbled forward. Silence. Neither of them moved. Then, from just outside the door came a voice. Low, calm, almost amused. "You boys should have left when you had the chance." Noah's blood turned to ice. The voice was deep and gravelly, distorted slightly as if the speaker were wearing some kind of mask. Eric's face had gone pale. The footsteps retreated down a hall. Then came the sound of glass shattering somewhere nearby. "What the hell was that?" Noah whispered. Eric shook his head. "I don't know." Another crash echoed from farther down the floor. Then another. The intruder was smashing windows or equipment, creating noise, disorienting them. Noah realized what was happening. "He's trying to flush us out." Eric's expression darkened. "Yeah." The radio crackled again, making both of them flinch. "Unit 12, supervisor has arrived on site." Relief flooded Noah's chest. Eric snatched the radio. "Fourth floor east wing, suspect is up here. Copy, hold position." The moment the transmission ended, the building's lights abruptly died. Pitch blackness swallowed everything. Noah let out a startled gasp. "What happened?" "The power's out," Eric muttered. And then, from somewhere in the hallway came laughter. Low, cold, deliberate. The intruder was still there, and now he had darkness on his side. Noah's breathing became shallow. This wasn't random. Whoever this was knew the building, knew the security systems, knew exactly what he was doing. Eric pulled out his flashlight and clicked it on. The narrow beam barely cut through the darkness. "We move now," he said. "What?" "We have to meet the supervisor." The thought of stepping into that black hallway made Noah's stomach twist, but staying trapped in the room was worse. They eased the door open. The corridor was empty. The broken remains of fluorescent light covers littered the floor. Farther down, one of the windows overlooking the parking lot had been smashed inward, rain blowing through the opening. Eric led the way. Their footsteps crunched softly over broken glass. Halfway down the hall, Noah noticed something on the wall.
written in thick black spray paint, "Turn back." His stomach dropped. "Eric!" Before he could finish, a figure burst from one of the side rooms, tall, dressed entirely in black, face hidden behind a smooth white mask. The intruder slammed into Eric, knocking him sideways. The flashlight skidded across the floor. Noah heard Eric shout as the two crashed into the wall. The intruder moved fast, too fast. He swung something metallic, a crowbar. It connected with Eric's shoulder with a sickening crack. Eric screamed. Noah froze. For one horrible second, terror rooted him in place. Then instinct took over. He grabbed the nearest object he could find, a metal clipboard stand, and swung it with everything he had. It connected with the intruder's side. The masked man staggered. Eric tackled him low, driving him into the shattered window frame. Glass exploded outward. The intruder lost his footing, and with a strangled yell, he disappeared backwards through the opening. There was a horrible crash from below, then silence. Noah stood frozen, chest heaving. Rain poured through the broken window. Eric groaned on the floor, clutching his shoulder. Seconds later, heavy footsteps thundered up the hall. The senior supervisor, Marcus, appeared with 2 armed patrol officers. "What happened?" Noah pointed weakly at the broken window. "He fell." The officers rushed downstairs. They found the masked man sprawled across a parked sedan 3 stories below, alive, barely. When police arrived and removed the mask, the truth was stranger than either of them could have imagined. The intruder was a former maintenance contractor named Victor Hale. Months earlier, he'd been fired after being caught stealing restricted medical supplies and sensitive patient records from the clinic. Apparently, he'd returned that night to retrieve evidence hidden inside the building before investigators discovered it. He'd disabled alarms, cut power access points, and plans to eliminate anyone who got in his way, including them. Victor survived the fall, and after his arrest, investigators uncovered enough evidence to tie him to multiple break-ins across the province. Noah quit mobile security the next morning. No notice, no second thoughts. Eric stayed on another 6 months before leaving too. But even now, years later, Noah still thinks about that night whenever he sees an empty office building after dark. He still remembers the sound of those slow footsteps climbing the stairs, the voice outside the exam room door, and the message sprayed across the wall. Sometimes, when he wakes suddenly in the middle of the night, he swears he can still hear that low laughter echoing through the dark halls of Black Ridge Medical, waiting, climbing, getting closer.